Welcome to this special Facebook live chat on Sage UK. I'm Michelle Grant, co-founder of Cherryduck, and I'll be chairing this session today, which is all about women with ambition. And I'm delighted to introduce three wonderful entrepreneurs. So let's kick off by getting you to introduce yourselves.
Great. Hi, I'm really delighted to be here. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I'm Jenny Garret. I'm an executive coach and an author of a book called Rocking Your Role. And I run my own leadership consultancy and a social enterprise that inspires teens.
Hi, I'm Grace Marshall. I am a productivity ninja. That is a real job title. And I'm also the author of How to Be Really Productive. And I'm the mum of two kids who are 9 and 12 at the moment.
And Jo?
I'm Jo, Jo Booth, and I'm the Managing Director of Social Media Makes Sense, which is the worst name for a business. It's too long. I don't know why I did that to myself. And we do social media primarily for TV and film.
Brilliant. Well, can we get started talking about ambition? Maybe, Jenny, can you tell us where your ambition started?
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. I started thinking about where did ambition really start, and it went back to when I was really very, very small. I remember actually being in the lift with my mum, and we lived in a big tower block at that point on the 22nd floor, and thinking about all the things I was going to do with my ambitions when I was older. I was going to change the world, probably become Prime Minister. I was going to buy her a new washing machine and a fur coat, because that's exactly what you did when you were rich and famous and had everything you needed in the world. So I think from a very early age it was all about changing the world for me in whatever way I could, and that's come out through the way I do business, really thinking about changing the lives of women or thinking about changing the lives of teenagers. When I see a problem that matters to me, I want to change it, and that's what ambition is.
Yeah. And what about you two? Would you remember your ambition?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I started thinking about this, I realised that actually I come from, in terms of my family line, my grandmother on my dad's side was a single mum. She was actually wife number 2 of 3 wives that my grandfather had, which was apparently legal at the time where they lived. But he left them, so she raised single-handedly 4 kids on her own, and we've all grown up with her as the matriarch of the family. I also come from a line of refugees and immigrants. So for me, I realised actually it's been part of our family, that kind of tenacity, that whole having a vision, not being restricted by your current circumstances and wanting to create something better, create a better future for yourself, for your family. So I'd say that's probably where it started from.
And what about you, Jo?
I don't know really. I don't remember a pinnacle moment or anything like that, but I've always wanted to work for myself. My mum worked for herself when I was growing up. I've got sisters and family that have done amazing things, so I was just sort of brought up that you kind of try your best and you go out there and go for it. Yeah. So I always wanted to work for myself, and I always wanted to do something that helped other people. And other than that, I don't really know. I just sort of did it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it.
Do you think, this title for this programme today is From Bossy to Boss, which is a horrible word, isn't it? Bossy. Someone even mentioned it on Twitter yesterday, didn't they? Why do women get called bossy? It shouldn't happen. Yeah. And it does. Do you ever get called bossy?
Well, funnily enough, when I got invited to do this, I was thinking about it and I was like, actually, I don't know if I've ever been called bossy. Then I stopped and remembered about 20 instances of being called bossy. One that really sort of put it in my mind as a really negative word, I suppose, is I was out with a load of, I would class them as friends. They were all other entrepreneurs, all male apart from myself. And we'd gone out networking, we were going for dinner afterwards, and when everybody got lost, and finally I was like, guys, will you just listen to me? It's this way. I know it. I'm not lost. I know where I'm going. And this boy turned round and he was really quite nasty to me and sort of said, God, you're bossy. See why you have to work for yourself, right? And I was like, I was quite taken aback, but also sort of thought, oh God, someone's got a chip on the shoulder, didn't think much of it. Yeah. One of the other boys in the group came up to me and he was so outraged and upset. He kept going on and on and on, and I was like, I'm over it, it's fine. And that, I think, really sort of made me aware that actually, if I'd been a boy in that situation, I don't think he would have called me bossy.
No, men just don't get called bossy, do they?
Not in my experience.
It's an interesting thing, because I was trying to think of a specific incident, like you said, and I couldn't, and I thought, it's probably just because it's such a common word that we've grown up with. But I was asking my kids, so I've got one boy, one girl, and I was asking them about their perception of the word bossy and whether they would use it for a boy or a girl. And actually now, in their generation, they're using it for both. And when I asked them to, can you think of one person, who's the first person who comes to mind when you think of the word bossy? And both of them came up with a boy's name.
Well, there you go,
So
the world is changing.
Yes, and I was speaking to my daughter about it. She's 16, if she ever gets called bossy, and I said by the boys, and she said she kind of owned it. And I thought that was nicer than worrying about it being an insult. She was like, well, who else is going to take charge? Who else is going to make sure things happen when we have group projects? I need to take the lead, and they know I'll get things done. And I just thought, well, go own it. And I think probably some of the time we need to not worry about these things, just own them. Actually, I am bossy, and so what? Someone needs to be. Someone needs to take charge. And I, you know, rather than and ambition, you know, even just thinking about the word ambition, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, ambition, that's really an insult. They think I'm an ambitious woman. Well, so what? Be an ambitious woman. So I think maybe the next generation will just own these words and not see them as insults, perhaps.
Now, challenges. Obviously, we've all got challenges, and as women, it's almost like you have to run the family, whether you've got elderly parents or young children or whatever you've got going on at home. It's almost still down to the woman to be able to do that, as well as have a business, have a career, be really successful. How do you cope with these challenges of juggling, basically?
I think it's a really interesting one. As women, one of our biggest challenges is we need to challenge the default, because, like you said, the default is always, it's down to the woman to run the household, to have kids, to do whatever those things.
This morning, the schools still ring the mum.
Yeah.
Why?
And I think it's just so worth challenging that default, because historically those roles have been set, but now we have that opportunity to change some of those roles. So one of my friends, Kristen Pressner, she did a great TEDx talk where she challenged people to flip it, to test it. So she did a talk around unconscious bias. And she said, the way to test it is to flip it. So if you change the name for a boy, a man's name and a woman's name, and you swap them around, would you treat them differently? And I think there was a great example a little while ago where there was one woman who worked, I think, in an advertising agency, and she swapped her name with her colleague, didn't she? Yeah. And the way that they were treated was so different. And I think that's one of the things we need to challenge, is that default.
I also think we're living in a new age, but yet we're using very old-fashioned rules. You know, my book is about women who are the main earner in their home, and when I wrote it, it was a third of women, and now it's a fifth. The other way around. Fifth, now it's a third. And the fact is, it's a growing number of women, and also the number of stay-at-home dads are growing as well. And yet we're still living in a time where we're, assuming that it's the man's the breadwinner and the woman's the stay-at-home carer. So I think we actually have to bring, the fairy tale of life, whatever that is, up to current day. And there are so many different ways to be. But even with that being the case, even as a woman who is the main earner, it's still tough, because actually generally I think women want more than work for their life. I think they want hobbies, or they want to care for people, or they want to do other things and have a different kind of balance. They don't want work to be all-consuming. And so I think it's a constant juggling act for us, and we have to deal with all of everyone's expectations and all of their assumptions. What I often say to women is, if you are the main earner, actually tell your boss, because they might think you're just coming to work for a bit of fun or to get out of the house. No, but some women, in the past, women were sometimes just coming to work to just do a little bit, and just earn a bit of pin money. But actually women are taking their careers much more seriously, and often their whole family life depends on it. But the good thing about being an entrepreneur, running your own business like we all do, is that we have a bit more control, don't we? We're much more able to set our time. So we might work longer hours, but we can do it our way.
I think the other thing, the other thing is challenging sort of at home too, making sure that if you're as busy as your partner, that half the duties at home are, their responsibility too. I mean, I'm really fortunate that my partner really backs everything I do and helps me in those ways, but that's not common. Like, I hear so many women say, I've got to get back and do this. I'm like, why? Are you not 50-50 partners when you go home? So, I think as women we should be telling our daughters and other friends and family that, you know, actually when you're at home, if you're a 50-50 partner, you should be, the jobs and everything else should be that way, and that gives you the freedom then to do the extra hours that you might need to put into your business.
But I think that also requires us to let go of control as well. Yeah. So I remember we've had times when we flipped. So there have been times when my husband's been the main earner, and then times when I've been the main earner. He went back to university and did a master's degree, and it was the weirdest feeling being upstairs writing my book, having that precious writing time, and knowing that my husband was downstairs cooking my signature stir-fried dish. It's like, let it go, let him do it.
Yeah. And what about roadblocks? Being a woman, have you come across any roadblocks as your career's progressed? Has there been anything that really sticks out in your mind?
I like to think I'm quite fortunate in that I wouldn't say there's something that I've gone, my God, if that hadn't happened to me, or, you know, I think some roadblocks I think we put there ourselves, whether it be we're the biggest naysayers of ourselves, right? You know, like, who are you to think that or do that or whatever? I'd say I'm probably the biggest downer on me being able to do things. So sometimes it's actually about looking after yourself and reminding yourself that you're the person that can free up these things and accept the challenges, and if it is a no, that's just an opportunity for something else. But I wouldn't say there's something been brought that I can't handle or change that and use it as an opportunity. I wouldn't say there's someone or something, glass ceiling or whatever, that's like, no, I'm not going to go any further because I'm a woman. I'm not going to go any further because I can't see it as an opportunity to do something else or develop from it. Personally.
When I went on maternity leave, I wanted to come back part-time to the job I had at the time, and it was refused. And that, for me, was a big stumbling block at the time. I really loved my job, but I really didn't want to be working 7 till 7 anymore, because I just thought I wasn't going to see my daughter, and it meant I had to leave my job. So I did experience what I would say is a brick wall in terms of moving forward in my career, and it meant that I did take, you know, I have to take different routes in the end. I think that happens less now, but I think there are still a lot of people who think, a lot of organisations and people who think that it's all about being present. It's all about the number of hours you spend in the office, and that's what productivity is, and that's what actually being a good employee is. And you know, my company is small, but it's flexible. We work from home on Fridays. I have people working different hours and to suit themselves. And actually, we just work 9 till 3 in the office. And so I tried. You know, I think that we can be more creative and think about outcomes. You know, what are the outcomes of the work you're doing, rather than how many hours do you put into it. I could be in the office 24/7, but I could be, you know, sending Messenger, be on Facebook, doing all kinds of things, having a nap, you know. So I think it's, I think that that was a big stumbling block for me, not working for an organisation who were willing to be flexible, and that still happens now for people, you know. And so I think that's one of the issues that I came across when I was employed.
And I think that's a really good point, because actually, you know, there's a lot of talk about the productivity crisis at the moment, and that's the kind of world that I work in. And there is still a lot of correlation between organisations that think you have to throw more hours and that presenteeism and productivity, whereas all the research shows that that doesn't work, and you know, that doesn't make us more productive. And in fact, some of the most productive people are, for example, women who do have to leave on time in order to meet childcare commitments, because they've got that hard deadline. And actually, they're far more focused, far more decisive, because they know they need to leave the office at that time.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
I mean, women are still very underrepresented at a senior level. Is there anything that you can advise to help women reach their goal to become a senior level, whether whichever sector
I'd like to build on Jo's point, which she was saying about you know, how she likes to work, and thinking about what you have to be when you work, and the fact is that I think sometimes we hold ourselves back. You were talking about you can be your worst critic, or and self-sabotage, and I think what we do is you might be, say, at middle level of management in an organisation, and you might think, well, I'm barely coping now, why would I go to the senior management level? But the thing about getting to the next level is that you might have more control over your diary. You might be able to change things in your organisation and introduce flexible working, for example, or you might be able to help, you know, if you've got more of a male-dominated environment, help them see what women can contribute in less hours instead of all the hours they're doing. So I think there's something that we can hold ourselves back, because we think the next level is going to be even worse, and we're barely coping now. But actually, when we get there, we might be able to make change happen. And I think And then the other thing I'd say to women is work hard, but let people know what you're doing. I think we're so often the people who are working so hard and hoping someone will recognise us and tap us on the shoulder and say, you know, well done, you need to be promoted. But actually do a good enough job, you know, don't neglect your job, but then go and tell people how amazing you are, because they will not know otherwise.
I was going to say, actually, you know, apply.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. A lot of women, I'm generalising, but a lot of women probably feel, like you say, oh, if I go to that level, then it's extra commitment, it's extra hours, it's this, that's the other. Oh, and also I'm not qualified to do so. Well, actually, who says you're not qualified to do so? I mean, I read it ages ago, so forgive me, I can't remember the fact, but it's something like, if a man's applying for a job and he has 3 out of the 10 criteria, he'll consider himself a worthy applicant and apply, whereas a woman wants to reach 9, I think it is.
Yeah,
I mean, something along those lines, isn't it? Yeah. Let's even say 5 for guys and 7 for women. It's still the extra 2 criteria.
Because women get more nervous or worried, thinking, "Oh, I'm not quite ready
good
for
enough.
that."
I'm not ready. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think actually, if you want to go to that level and you want to sort of push yourself and be at the table, then apply.
Yeah.
And say
The
yes
boys
to
are.
those
Yeah, the boys are applying.
Basically, you are ready for
The
that.
worst case is you don't get accepted, right? But if you don't apply, you're not even going to be considered.
Yeah.
And there's been opportunities that I haven't got, but they've opened up something for me, because I've kind of let people know what I'm interested in, and when opportunities have come or different opportunities have come about, they've been able to say, okay, we know who she is and what she's about and what she's capable of. So it's never actually a failure to not get it, you know, when you don't get the opportunity you want, because you've put yourself out there and opened yourself up.
It's not the organisation for me, actually. If there isn't scope for me to move up, then maybe it's time to get out.
Yeah.
Time to, you know,
Absolutely.
And it's all good practice as well, that kind of negotiation, that speaking up for yourself, self-promotion.
Yes.
I think, you know, a lot of people, and you know, I'd say men and women actually, you find that self-promotion quite hard. I don't know if it's a British thing. But yeah, we find self-promotion quite hard, and so it's something we need to have practice at doing. And so when you put yourself forward for an opportunity or you apply for a position, you put yourself in that place where you do have to sit down and go, right, okay, how do I put my best self forward? What have I done? How do I acknowledge my achievements? And that's good practice.
And now, Norway has pioneered the quota approach. I've just been reading up on it, actually, because I didn't realise about this. But, so in Norway, 40% of women are boardroom level. UK hasn't, well, I think they go with the guidelines, but they've not gone with the approach. What do you think about the quota approach? Would that help us as the UK if we adopted that approach?
It's obviously working for a start.
So
they're obviously getting the ladies' bums on the seats at the table, so that's a positive. But then I think actually it's about educating. I think it's about talking to women, to girls, and saying, you know, put yourself forward, apply for the jobs, that kind of stuff. And then it's about saying to maybe the male board members, you know, have you considered what a woman might bring to this role? Or, you know what a person will bring to this role? And, you know, maybe blind CVs, that kind of thing. Maybe that's the way forward, more than let's just get women at the board.
Yeah, because obviously you want the right person for the job. It's not just because they're a certain...
But obviously it's working, so...
Yeah.
And I think if there's something about when you put something arbitrary like quotas in place, it just challenges people to dig a little bit deeper rather than go, oh, I can't find the right person. So, you know, a friend of mine, Alison Jones, she has a podcast called the Extraordinary Business Book Club, where she interviews authors of business books. And she set herself a target of 50-50 gender balance. So all of her interview guests would be, you know, there'd be a 50-50 gender balance. And she said it's been really hard. Yeah, there have been times where, you know, the number of male authors she's been, you know, able to get to come on the show have outweighed the number of female authors, and she's had to work harder to find those female authors. But without that quota in place, maybe that just wouldn't have happened.
She's gone and done it.
Exactly, she's gone and done it,
Yeah, for me, I'm a real advocate of quotas, actually. I really think it's quite important. I think what gets measured gets done. I think when we're looking at, we're thinking about gender parity, they say it's going to be another 100 years before we get it. And I think, you know, I think it's highly unlikely I'll be alive at that point. I want it to happen in my lifetime.
When did they say that? When that 100 years, when did that start?
Ernst & Young and the United Nations did that research, and it came out last year. So they said... world. The fact is that people need a push in the right direction. There are so many priorities in life. You know, if you're a person in the top of your organisation quite comfortably, why are you going to shake things up? Why are you going to introduce women into your board who maybe don't think like you or whatever, and I might have to change things? You're not going to do it unless you're actually forced to. And as a black woman as well, I think we shouldn't just be thinking about gender. I think we should be thinking about people from all minority backgrounds, and there's so much research about how that diversity really improves the bottom line. So it's not just a nice to have, it actually makes a difference in organisations. So I'm a real fan of quotas, and I must say there are opportunities that have come about in my life because they've needed a woman or they've needed a black woman, and I've grabbed those opportunities. Of course, when you get the opportunity, you have to be good. You know, you still have to be good, or else they'll sack you, or they'll find a way to get rid of you, or it's going to be a major embarrassment in your life. So it's not really about just giving people things not on merit, because you have to be good to stay there. And it's opening the door for people who the door wouldn't be open for. So I'm a real advocate of them.
So practically, how could we get the government to change their mind? Can we do that? I don't know. Like now they say no, we're going to go with the guidelines. Could we? I mean, is anyone going back to the government to be able to say no? You need to actually do this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I think there's constant lobbying really around, gender and equal pay, etc. But I think there's something more than that. You know, they in the government have done things, or politicians have done things. They've done 50-50 interviews, for example, when they've wanted a candidate for a role in government. They've done 50-50 interviews, and I think organisations now are realising that they have to do more, because they're having to report on the gender pay gap, and they're going to have to report on more and more, and I'm sure they'll be having to report on the ethnicity pay gap soon. So I think organisations are realising that this matters, and I think as customers we can lobby organisations as well. You know, how many women have you got in senior roles? You know, what is the diversity of your organisation? Who are you getting money from, and how diverse are those companies that you are funded by, or who you spend your advertising money with? So I think we're becoming more educated, and I think it comes from the government, but I think it comes from everyday people as well, wanting it to happen, and I think as a result things will change.
And I think that transparency as well helps to start that conversation, get that conversation going, doesn't it?
Yeah, because more people are going to go, oh yes, have I got 100% men, and like, let's get that moving. But you mentioned the gender pay gap, and there is an imbalance. It's proven there's an imbalance. What advice could you give to the people watching today if they know that John next to them is doing exactly the same job and yet earning more? I mean, how can they address that? How could they go to their bosses and ask for it? Just ask for it.
I know it sounds ridiculous, because I think people get very unnerved about going to their employers and saying, actually, I deserve to be paid more. I mean, how scary is actually thinking the next move might be I'm on the street, right? So I get that. But equally, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you know there's a disparity, calling them out on it, I mean, as an employer, if I wouldn't do it in the first place, but let's say I was, I'd be mortified. I'd want to rectify that immediately, you know.
Yeah, maybe a lot of employers don't even realise, because it might go to
individual
HR,
packages. Individual packages might have been agreed. I went for a job interview a while back, actually, and when we got to the conversation of pay, and they said, you know, how much pay would you be looking for to come here? And I said my price, and they said, nobody else would be on that at your role. And I said, but you've just told me there is nobody at my role. That's why you've asked me here. And they said, good point. And I said, that's the price I would like. If you come back and say it's less, I already know that nobody else is on that, so okay, I will look at it. But if I find out that one other person, male or female, is on more than me, and you're asking me for a managerial role, I said, I'm walking out that door. And they were like, oh, okay. And I mean, I felt so powerful. I was like, wow, where did that come from? I was mostly scared that when I came home and told my mum I hadn't said that, that was going to be scarier. But they took it really seriously. And, you know, I just was really open about it. Like, I don't mind being paid less than what I've asked for. But if I find out that somebody else is doing a less role, because you've told me that I'm taking the highest role here, then I'm going to be absolutely fuming. So ask for it.
Yeah, and you know, if there is a difference between your pay and someone else's pay, ask them to explain that. Yeah. Do they have good reasons for that? Or is it just because, John asked for a higher number and they gave it to them? So actually, opening up that conversation, so it's not just a case, we're not having a fight here, I want to understand your thinking, what are your objectives, and I'd like you to understand mine as well, and then can we come to an agreement? It goes back to that negotiation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think there is a challenge in that organisations don't want you to talk about pay. So you're not really allowed to tell people how much you earn. If we all knew, it'd be so much easier, wouldn't it? And so sometimes it's really a hard subject to broach. So, I would go in saying, I would like to have a pay rise. This is where I've added value in the organisation. Also, I've benchmarked my pay. I've seen what other people in this sector or doing my job are being paid. And, actually, I think there's scope for however much more. So I would go at it from that angle. And then I would also say, if you can't give me money, because some small organisations can't, what else could you give me? Can you give me a training programme? Can you, what are the other things that you could give me instead of money? So, so that it's not, not this sort of head-on collision that you might have, which could end up blowing up in your face. And then I would also think if they can't give you what you want still, I would say, can we have another meeting in 3 months or 6 months to rediscuss this? So it's not the end of the conversation, it's the beginning of an ongoing conversation that you can come back to and hopefully get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Now, do you have any advice for women that maybe are starting out on their journey? We might have young girls just leaving school watching, and what advice would you give to women today going out into the workplace?
That's a big one.
I would say get your support network in place. So have your role models, and somebody once told me, look into, not up to, your role models. So then you look into how are they working that, how do they deal with their obstacles. So whether that's somebody you have direct contact with or even just someone you look up to, you look into how they work. So have somebody who can be a mentor to you, whether formally or informally, but also look to mentor someone else. Because I found I get that imposter syndrome a lot. Who am I to do this? All my book opportunities, my authoring opportunities, all my big opportunities have come from that place of going, I don't know if I'm the right person. Who am I to do this? But I've gone for it anyway. And what helps me to get into that role always is if I'm doing it for someone else. So if I'm helping other people, if I'm helping other women by bringing a female voice into the productivity conversation, if I'm helping my clients by going into a particular area, if I'm helping my kids by showing them that it can be done. So if you're also mentoring somebody else, that will also put you in the position where you are maybe showing up and standing up a little bit more firmer for yourself. So I'd say that,
Any more advice?
Good, Jenny.
I definitely think, and it's building on your points, really, I think get a network internally and externally. So don't just go to your, if you're a big organisation, don't just go to your department, sit there, not know anyone else in the organisation, because when you go for promotion, they're going to say, who knows X, and if everyone says, no, I've never seen her, I don't know what she does or what she's about, it's going to be really hard for you to get that next step up. So network internally, but also build your external network as well. Go to events, find like-minded people who will push you and motivate you and be your cheerleaders. All of my opportunities have come through my network. A group of amazing people who really have supported me and who I'm willing to support and give to as well. And also, just building on Grace's point, take risks. Just take risks. Particularly if you're at the beginning of your career, you haven't really got much to lose, and you've got so much more to gain because you always learn something about yourself when you take those risks.
Do you think that women have ever felt intimidated in business? That's one of the questions. I spoke to a woman the other day who actually did say to me that she was in the tech industry actually, and I think the guys that were intimidating her felt frightened possibly. I don't know if you've ever come across that in your industry.
I think it's an associated risk with business. It's less stable, there's less financial security, all that kind of thing. So I think women are scared of business maybe more so than men, in that they take their responsibilities very seriously. Maybe they are worried about, well, if I drop my income, then there's no backup plan, I've got the children to think about, etc. So I think we're sort of a bit more risk averse by nature. But I think actually the thought of being in business doesn't necessarily scare them, because actually what is business? It's looking after finances. Most women are pretty all right at that. You know, it's going out and meeting people. Women love to meet people, you know, generalising, but I think actually the what is a business, most women actually are running small businesses at home, whether they know it or not. So I don't think it's actually the word business they're afraid of, it's the risk that's associated with being in business that I think potentially puts women off, maybe more so than men. I don't know.
Yeah. So, just the final question: how did you all get to where you are today? Not literally here, but as in your
A long train.
But you know your positions of where you are in your career. How was the journey for you all?
Mine was an accident. I actually didn't say before when we were saying about what advice would you give to young women. Mine would be ask. Whether it's ask for the promotion, ask for the pay rise, or ask for help. I think that's really important. Most of my support network have got me to where I am because I've asked for the help. So, like I said, I've ended up where I am by accident in that I knew I wanted to work for myself. So I had that passion, ambition, whatever you want to call it. And I went out and I bought actually a off-the-shelf business, and it was terrible, don't ask. Anyway, but it taught me so many valuable lessons. It taught me about being in business. It taught me that it's really hard to sell. It taught me not to trust what you see online. And it taught me about social media. And then it kind of spiraled from there. So I got asked to help students basically tidy up their reputations online, because they're the worst at representing themselves online. And then off the back of that, businesses, and off the back of that, I got approached to do the TV stuff. So I've ended up here by accident, but it's on the back of good work too. So if you just apply yourself and turn up every day, you don't know where the next opportunity is going to lie. You don't know what door's going to open. And sometimes I sit there thinking, God, it's Groundhog Day. I'm back on that treadmill and nothing's happening. But I show up, and then usually if you show up, an opportunity shows up too, especially if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same thing, completely by accident. And you know, and lots of, I suppose looking back with hindsight, you could say they were kind of moments of serendipity, but actually there were also moments of risk-taking. It was moments of going, I think I could do that. And rather than just having that conversation here, I'm actually saying it, and then that leads on to the next one. The other thing that's always led me forward is for me, my ambition is driven by wanting to help people. So I've always gone, okay, I'm feeling like I'm not sure, who am I to do this? But actually, if it just helps one person, I'm going to keep doing it. If it stops helping, then I'm going to go back and rethink it. But if it just helps one person, I'll keep doing it because I'm doing it for them. And that helps me to kind of put myself forward and keep going. And then that's what's kept me going, definitely.
I think it's similar in that, well, it was a colleague who came into my office and said she thought I'd be a good coach. And I ended up doing a coaching program and then launching my business and it growing and developing from there. So I think someone recognising something in me and then me following that up and being committed to continuing to develop myself. So actually that was one bit. I think willing to be vulnerable. So when I wrote my book, it was a big leap for me in terms of vulnerability and talking about being a female breadwinner and interviewing all these women and having a responsibility to share their lives as well. So I think sort of the vulnerability, a bit of risk, a bit of listening to feedback that I've got, and then and also this sense of continuing to evolve. I think what I'm hearing from everyone is that we keep evolving, we keep changing, we keep thinking about what next and how do we do that. And I think that keeps you growing and keeps opening opportunities for you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. I think
you.
that might be all we've got time for today. But thank you for your time and travelling the whole country to get here today. And thank you to Cherryduck for filming, and obviously Sage UK for making this happen. Just one last thing. It's part of the Ambition Facebook Live series. Sage are offering a free ebook. It's for you and your business to help achieve your ambitions. It's got some really great advice. So you will find the link, should be in the comments below this film or on their Facebook site. You'll find the link to download for free. And also, one very final thing, there's only 2 days left for, it's called the Business Ambition Competition, and you have to nominate someone, and you've got 2 days left, and then they get the opportunity to have a discussion with Peter Jones. So please nominate. You go to sage.com/ambition. sage.com/ambition. Just need to make sure I get that right. Sage.com/ambition. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time for tuning in today.